Warm welcome, everyone. Nice having you in. I can see more and more of you are coming, so that's great. Hello. So my name is Anna. I'm here today with Chris, and welcome back to yet another L&D Backstage session. Um, Let us know in the chat where you are joining from. We saw there were a lot of people interested in knowing how booking is changing learning and development to be more of a strategic partner rather than, let's call it order take it, Chris. And I'm super excited to have Chris here with us today. Chris, you may have seen already in over on LinkedIn. He will also introduce himself, but Chris is here today as learning experience from booking.com. So he will share a bit about their own journey, lessons learned, and what you can take also for you. And I heard there was a couple of surprises at the end, so you would get some materials that might be interesting. Yeah, I hope you all are already aware of these L&D backstage sessions. If you would like to host one yourself, please get in touch. I would be more than happy to brainstorm with you about that. And without further ado, Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you very much. I'm not going to start with me. I'm going to start with you. So this session's about you guys. So my first point I'm going to make, this is not academia. Really isn't. It's because we are going through a journey, good and bad. This session will be more snorkeling and deep diving, so high level in 3 areas. And it's very much about getting a seat at the table as a strategic partner. Now, we're going to talk about band-aids, those short-term fixes to being a true business value. The session will be very interactive with intentional reflection space as we go forward. So a lot of Slidos and a lot of asking you what you guys are doing, what you feel and think. Sorry, the thing's not moving. There we go. A little bit about me. So I've been in sort of learning development for over 20 years. Firstly, within the military environment, into corporate, and then a bit into consultancy. In the last 16 months, I have been at booking.com doing learning experiences. But before we sort of deep dive into it, I want to go into a story. So I went for a coffee with one of my sales directors in an old job. He was waxing lyrical what we were doing there. We created a 4-tier leadership program, which he said was making a massive difference to the business. He said that what I liked what he did was, the business involvement, you actually co-created with us. You went to all the different levels of leaders, the board members, SMEs, so we talked and embedded in sort of HR, finance, business excellence, marketing, sales, all those sort of areas. He said, and it wasn't that normal sort of classroom stuff. You flipped the classroom, you did real play, so it was actually into the business, knowledge sharing, a lot of innovation exercises and charity work involved as well, coaching and mentoring, peer learning, and so on. And looked at projects. Some of the projects were large. They went into the actual strategic priorities and actually were in there and used. Some smaller cross-functional ones that had marginal gains, employee engagement roles, the coaching culture was thriving. And the big things, we transitioned from a product to a service-led company, so product service-led. But it's coming. This all sounds really good. It's coming. So he smiled in his designer suit, shuffled in his chair, moved his Rolex watch, patted me on the shoulder, and he says, "Big man," because that's what he called me back then. "Big man," he said, "great stuff what you're doing here. But at the end of the day, learnings are nice to have. You're an overhead. You don't sell, no revenue, and you certainly don't make profit." And to be honest, that really, really hurt. It really, all the effort you put in, and it attacks your why to be a strategic partner to the business. But it's that, dust myself down. And the biggest thing for me was reframing it. So everything I've done moving forward, I don't think learning content. I think value, value, value. So the question I want to ask you guys is, do you have a similar story? Internal reflection. Close your eyes. Have you got a similar story? Will you see you as a strategic partner, an overhead, or maybe something else? So if I can ask you to put it onto Slido. So as you can see at the slide there, hopefully Slido will work for you. You can see the number there, and I'd be grateful if you use the QR code and maybe popped in there. Now, Anna said that, she's tried it and tested it, that it'll ask you your name, but you can go on as your name or go on as anonymous, not a problem at all. So I'll give you a couple of minutes there. So imagine you're sitting with someone in your business that you partner with. I've been supporting them to drive business impact. What would they be saying to you? Are you a strategic partner, an overhead, or something else? Lovely. A good point. Right, okay, contractor. So yeah, one of many. And it's just that differentiator. Excellent. We do nice, shiny stuff. Not sure how much value they add. I think we'd be curious and we'd be asking me how I think I can add value. Excellent. So that's good that there's an openness from the business. Any more for any more? I think we'll move it on. We'll on the outline of it is nice, but we don't have time for that. We're too much work overload. Fantastic seeing that. How do you actually put it in the flow of work? How do you actually make that value? And there's no budget you cut on learning. Excellent. So how do you get that budget? Yeah, excellent. Superb. Thank you. Okay, Anna, I think I'll move on. Oh, got a couple more. They're coming through now in thick and fast. Counsellor, facilitator. Not quite a strategic partner yet. I think we'll see that. I think we will see you as a strategic partner. Yes. How can you benefit? Lovely. Thank you so much for the comments. So lots of good points there. The biggest thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put it through, is collaboration is in our DNA, and we are not an overhead as we go forward. So let's look at agenda points. I'm going to split it into 3 areas. I'm going to look at user-centered and business design. I know it's similar to sort of the idea of human-centered design, learning the flow of work, and also finishing off with sort of building in a marketing strategy. So let's get to the first point. I think Anna mentioned it before. For me, it's the why. It's clear and simple. It's from order taker to solution designer, not instructional design to solution designer. And again, I say it's value, value, value. That's what we see, order taker to solution designer. So as I said, we're going to keep this interactive. So what is stopping our why? What is stopping our why? So I talked about Band-Aids before. What is the sort of things with sticky plasters that we use to move us forward? What is it we do to do it? So I just want to go through a few that we do at booking.com and then ask you guys if you get any in the chat. So the first one they say is a credit card of gold. Your friends within the business, you buy them different courses, programs, conferences, and you don't look for the value. So that you have the credit card of gold, and then you just buy for who you like. Content chaos. So we're thinking about the elements of buying different sort of providers without even seeing if you've got that content there already. The spaghetti of those different things. Paralysis by analysis, you don't know what to pick from. Also looking at workshops, no measurables. So you put them in place, and then they ask and re-engineer back the way, what is the measurables to go forward? Then we think about inputs and not outputs and outcomes. So that's bums on seats. And sometimes I've even seen it how the lunch was, but how do we make this really, really relevant to us for outputs and outcomes? And last one is repackaging workshops. And what I mean by that is, let's just say you've got a communication workshop, 90 minutes bite size. And one day you do it to an HR team, next day you do it to a marketing team. All you do is rub out the name and start again. So there's no curation there. It's just generic, but you need to get into the psyche of what they're doing as an area. So there's just a few sort of Band-Aids that we've sort of done in all honesty. So can I ask you to put in the chat to Anna, what Band-Aids do you do? You're thinking about the short-termism you do. What is it you do? If you just pop that in the chat, that'd be awesome. What's stopping you being a strategic partner with these Band-Aids? Anna, if you could sort of put put some out from the chat, it'd be that awesome. Thank you very much. Have a think about it. What is your band-aids? What have we got, Anna?
Yeah, we have a lot of insights here, Chris. So from definitely a lot of content chaos, it seems. Credit card of gold is definitely number one. Repackaging workshops is a big one for David as well. Then a mix of some of these, measuring only bums on seats. This is also a very good one, I would see. Nothing being measurable. From a consultant point of view, clients still want a lot of e-learnings and rubbish marketing strategy. This is kind of the most inputs we got so far.
Sure, fantastic. All really good points, and it's all short-termism as well. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you. So again, Guy Wallace across the pond, who's just retired. I just love his saying, you know, for every 3-day course, there's a 1-page performance support guide trying to get out. And what does that mean to me? It means to me it's doing the right thing at the right time. So it's not about just creating content in a dark room, it's doing the right thing at the right time. And that's the conversations and the collaboration that you have to move forward. So let's look at the 3 golden rules we have here at booking.com. So again, we're looking at sort of the first element there about them. And for me, it's to listen to understand. It's being curious and really seeing what's there. The second part, the creativity, again, it's not content dump. It's really mixing the right resources and the right experiences through those design workshops, really understand it and co-create with them as they go forward. And one question I ask for business needs, one of the big ones I always ask is, what is the cost of not doing it? And see what they say. What is the cost of not doing it as we go forward? I see these 3 things as cornerstones for learning an organisation as we go forward. And at booking.com, we're quite lucky at the moment. So we have a value, which is learn forever. Also, we're shifting the culture in the business. And one of them is learn a mindset. So it's given us this real opportunity to get that mindset and actually put learning through the business. So we've got permission to make that a reality, which is awesome. To support, make it a reality, we've embedded Nick Shackleton-Jones' 5DI model. So I don't know if many of you have seen it, but I'll just quickly run through it. There's one point I really want to get to, what we should talk about. So define is really what you get in there for the sort of outcomes. So it's not really learning outcomes, it's more performance outcomes. And then we go into discover, which is about 360, where we start going into the sort of users, what they want. So sometimes the stakeholder wants one thing, user wants something else. And then it's designing and putting the right things in place. Sometimes it can be plan A, plan B, plan C, but what it is getting the right options there to design, develop it through and deploy. All the way through, you iterate and keep that constant feedback loop going through it all. But the one I really want to sort of say the catalyst for me to get right, and what we have noticed as well in our first early interactions, is define. Don't solutionize, define. So if you can define well, it means that you can then define, discover, and have a great design workshop. Sometimes what happens if we don't define well, we find when we're doing the sort of design workshop, we're actually going back the way. So for us, define, define, define. So that is really getting those customer needs, listening to understand and get in their shoes, not solutionizing. Be curious, you know, info gather, really understand the problem statement. What are the measurements they want? You know, what is the impact they want? Understand the budget they have, the timescales. What does good look like? That is massive in that part. That's, I cannot emphasize as much important define is. It's a really important part. Sometimes we give it a tick box, but I would really look to define, go slower and do define, and then also the same with discover, so you can get a really good design workshop through. But, you know, as a function, as a learning there, we do like to please. We do like to please. So when we look through a business or user's lens, it doesn't mean being a pushover. You know, picture this. Is this familiar to you guys? You know, you gather all information up, you lock yourself away in a room, and you create, get nervous excitement, and then you bring out the solution for the customer to say, no, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. And the actual deflation of what you're doing So sometimes a failure it's your fault. If it's a success, they take the plaudits. So it's not really a good place to be. But what I say is we are professionals and can challenge. We are professionals and can challenge. So it's being a trusted business partner from top down and bottom up. That is the key for me. So it fits into the three areas, for strategic through to capability. And in these three areas, what I would say is tap into the psyche at all. We've tapped into the psyche at all leadership levels. So it's not just about the top. We really get through all leadership levels and connect the dots between sort of individual, team, and organization, right through the levels. And it's having those constant feedback loops through there. Also, it's about tackling and competing objectives, because you know yourself, sometimes it can be the biggest thing there. You get a burning platform, you're now irrelevant. So it's the why again. Why are we doing this? And when you're going through this, you have ups and downs, and it's having that resilience to keep going and believe in what you're doing. Because we have had ups and downs in this journey here to get where we need to be, but we've just kept to that why. We've always kept to the North Star going forward. So in doing this, there's three key areas for me to enforce. The first bit is the knowledge management. For me, that is a treasure chest. That is a treasure chest. And what I mean by that is the raw materials. Having those raw materials, sometimes we keep reinventing the wheel, but having raw materials of best practice to curate different elements there. The digital content, it's simplifying digital content, knowing what to use and when to use it, and scaffold it in. Big part has been wise with external learning companies you use, and also scaling up with the gig economy. So scaling up is important, but use the gig economy wisely. AI is there. I'm not going to go into any detail on AI, but actually having that AI element there, so the automation. The two bits I really want to sort of go on is the SMEs. So around the business at Booking, I have seen some amazing things happening in sort of the sort of tech world, the sort of people world, ideation, makeathons, hackathons, great sessions, actually more than we've got here at Learning. So for me, it's been wise in bringing the SMEs into that learning org, bring them in and learn from them as well, because there's a lot of best practice out there that we have not got. And what does that do? It makes the business smaller. So you might have the same amount of people, but the business is smaller as a learning org because you're cross-functional and you're supporting each other. And that's huge for me. The second one, the customer, for me, get in early. You've got to get in early, because if you don't get in early, they're going to solutionize for you. And the solution's there, and they ask you to make it look pretty. So they've already decided what it is. And I heard earlier on from Anna, they keep on e-learning, don't solutionize early. Look at the art of the possible as it goes forward. And impact, again, it's a so what. It's a so what. And the best way to do this for me, quite simply, is start with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. I know it's a cliche, it's Stephen Covey, but it's touch and feel what it will be like to succeed. Get the raw information out in the open. It's not solutionizing, it's get out in the open. So it's go slow to speed up. Go slow to speed up. You do your due diligence. You do it up front, then you can accelerate in the small steps in a more sort of agile way, a more sprint way as you move forward and iterate. This is not waterfall. It really isn't. It's more of a holistic view. You may have to circle back sometimes, but not as many times as you would if you just go straight into it. And we do want to go straight into it and solutionize straight away. And it's having that ability to step back and look at that bigger picture. So top down, we are starting to do this within booking.com. It's a step change. So let's have a quick look at some of these areas that we've been into. So some examples. So I've got the pictures there. Has that come up? No, it's not come up. There we go. That's 2 seconds. There we go. That's it now. So the first one is compliance. Grace done a fantastic job, and what she's done, she's looked at, we had 12 privacy modules. She's then stripped it back, really challenged it, had a look through it all. From 12, she's now blended it. She's now got time to competence, time to completion less, because it was too much in there. It was just what we've always done. And she's taken that as best practice, and she's going to go through the whole of the holdings team to actually look at the whole sort of end-to-end compliance, how it sticks together. So it's not moving. There we go. Culture. So in culture, what we're doing is moving away from awareness to actually into the day job. So culture is massive here. It's a beginning part for us, but it's working to fully embed in the way of working. So that's what's important to us as we go forward. And I'll show you a little bit in this in a moment on culture. 3 areas in talent management looked at. The top talent program, usually it's classroom, not classroom at all. It's more exposure, enablement, experience, and the core design to move it forward. So it's real play as it goes forward. A lovely one that's done by Sabina and by Elda and my team, and the HRBP and Ramia. Fantastic work, follow the work sprints, what they're doing for the HR Academy, and two main topics, analytics and org design. So this is real play, really happening, and they're doing it now. So it's going to make a massive difference to the business. Also, they've looked at the grad programs and very technical. So a lot of skills have been put in there. So a good power skills mix in there as well. And I look at the final area, has it come up yet? Onboarding. Really great work from Chem and with the onboarding team to really look at connecting holistically. So what I mean by that is looking at from end to end, from day one, from the global onboarding, from the departmental 90 days, executive. Before there were separate entities, and now they're creating that journey to sort of build it up and using a sort of experience design to sort of get more of it. So turning the dial on it there, and some great work with the expertise of the onboarding team. But one I want to just quickly show you as an example is the design solutions culture for culture. I've got a culture page there, which is great. But just a deep dive into some of the things there. The toolkit that they've created is fantastic because it's more around sort of fitting into team meetings and stand-ups. So it's not like standalone, and it's got lots of retros, icebreakers, but great stuff for new hires as well. So you don't reinvent the wheel, and brings the new hires into that cultural thinking as it goes forward. And then they've got Mindsets Unlocked, which really touches and feels in the workplace and is a real play practice. Which brings us on to the learn-alongs, which goes into flow of work, but also creates real, tangible action plans. And then the last one there is choice-based scenarios. So then you're testing your action plans out there to put into the day-to-day of what you do. So again, we talked about intentional reflection. Let's do a little bit more. On the Slido, what I want you to do is, we've talked about business and user. So how close are you to the business? Rate yourself from 1 to 10. So how close, 10 being the highest and 1 there. So a bit of reflection, how close are you to the business? Got some in there. Any numbers? 1, external 765. Wow. Any more for any more? Got a few more 7s, so sitting at 7. Grand, excellent. And move on to the next one. Again, same sort of thought process. How close are you to the user? Rate yourself 1 to 10. So how much do you connect with the user? 2. Wow. 6. 4, 5, 2. Oh, big 2s and big 5s. 6 and 4. Okay, a lot of 5s and 2s. Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much. Now I want you to think about it. Your +1, there's a 5s and 2s, 6, 7. So you get 6 or 2 or 5, whatever you put in there. What would your +1 for being close to the user, what would you do? Just that marginal gain, what would you do? So you know your 2, you know your 5, you know your 6. What would you do to get that +1? Yeah, hear them. I'd love to ask you why don't you hear them, but I'm mindful of time. Short regulation to emphasize on regular. Excellent. So yeah, so having the right questions available. Excellent. The interviewed learners. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Follow-ups. Yeah, so it's all that sort of continuous nudging. It's all continuous. Excellent. And that brings to the last question. What would your +1 be to get closer to the business? So if you had a 2, 5, or 6, what's your +1? Strategic sponsor, love it. That's something we, really believe in that. ROI and time spent. A creator rather than a deliverer. Excellent. Impact. Fantastic. Okay, just to get us thinking, so we know it's the business, we know it's the user, so it's thinking about how do we sort of turn that dial. So excellent thought processes there. Well, okay. Any more? Just give it a couple of seconds. Oh, thank you so much, guys. So, we talked about things we're doing now, but I'm going to have to be honest to say what's out of scope, what we're not going to talk about. There's a few things we're still on that continuous journey and we're learning. We've got a few bruises, we've got a few aches and pains, but things we're starting now in the predefine are things like communities of practice. Now, when I say that, what I mean is communities of practice, academies, call it what you will, but for me, it's creating the right environment. So we're doing a pilot with HR Academy, and it's really about not pigeonholing ourselves as just a community of practice. That can be part of the whole experience, but it's just creating that sort of buzz within there and the right things. Understanding some places like, finance and legal, you may need a bit more academia in there, a bit more education, but it's that 80-20 model. And what's important for us is putting the red thread through as well. Things like talent management, diversity inclusion, org design, things that are important to the business all the way through. It's a sort of 20 business, 80 craft stroke function. Skill-based org, I won't go into detail. We have a massive project going on at the moment within sort of booking.com, and that's looking at it from a sort of end-to-end. So it's almost a digital transformation from people, and that's from talent acquisition all the way through talent management and talent development, with AI involved and sort of skills-based. So that's the capability element there as well for us, and also internal mobility. And then finally, the last one is business analytics. We've got it in sort of almost 3 buckets, and that's like dashboarding, improvements, business impact improvements, and what we do, how we report it, but also really thinking of that blank bit of paper. And what I mean by that is really thinking about the conversation we have, almost as a performance consultant of what we can do to move things forward. So probably in 3 different buckets, more of a program, but that's just sort of 3 big ones we've got coming for 2024. So you're thinking, why are they missing? Just haven't got there yet, but we've started. So as I said again, collaboration is in our DNA. It really is. It's about getting it in there. And guys, we are not an overhead as we go forward. So the next one I want to do is learning the flow of work. So we mentioned earlier, less content dump and more in the moment of need by doing, but also it's still important, again, back to that sort of, we're not an overhead, it's also by achieving. Hands-on learning is difficult by using traditional strategies and frameworks. That's why we did around them. It's more topics rather than tasks, and we need to get more to the tasks than what they're doing. But what I say is flow of work isn't new. It's a buzzword you hear Josh Bersin using quite a lot. But over the last 30 years, Bob Mosher and Gloria Gary have been talking about it all the time. Right? All the time it's been mentioned. So the $1 million question is, why are we not nailing it? So in the chat, we talk about it. I'm being honest, maybe some people are doing it better than others, but in general terms, we hear it. So the question I'm asking to the chat for Anna is, why do we not nailing it? What's your thoughts? Why? We talk about it in the flow of work. It's nice, it's sexy. Why are we not nailing it? Just in the chat. And I'll give you my 2 cents worth afterwards. So I'd just love to hear from Anna what we've got from the floor.
Okay, we already have one insight from Richard. People are focused on delivering content. Wait, I lost that because we have now a lot coming in. So we hear here people are okay, sorry. People are focused on delivering content and in the flow of work, and that's topics, not tasks.
Yeah.
So here that it seems that is a bit more relevant to business. And then we also have here, it's like, oh, okay, sorry. We're not great at prompting reflection and capturing the progress in mass. We fly over individual interests and needs to check a box rather than to provide appropriate solutions. Not following up on progress, so a lot of thoughts also on the impact. Our toolbox and skill set is limited. Then also another thought on us as L&D, difficulty to measure the impact as well. Not connected enough to the users. And this was funny because I also realized in this round, at least, that we share. People can't use performance supports if they can find them. Also interesting. Again, also the topic of being close to the users. And there's also, there's an interesting one here. It's like a bar of soap. You think you have it, then it slips out. Too difficult to pin down. And many competing priorities on people's time. Massive misunderstanding of what this buzzword means. I have no time to learn, not realizing that peer conversations using ChatGPT is also on the job learning. So lack of support also from leadership and acknowledging what is learning after all. You know, the topic of learning as training being set down in a training session.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of very cool insights, I would say. Thank you guys for sharing that.
Wow, there's some crackers in there. I'm now feeling. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm feeling a bit sort of left, but yeah, I'll try and do my best here. For me to nail it, it shouldn't feel like traditional learning. It really shouldn't. You mentioned there the ChatGPT, the sort of water cooler talks, getting down and sorting things out. It's part of the day job. It really is part of the job. It's not a disruptor. So much so it should be invisible and seamless. I know, and that's idealistic, but you know, if we can do a lot more of that, and the learning we know is learning is awareness, and we still need that, but it's actually, you know, how do we get it through? So attempt check. I love this phrase. Make the difference between learning and your day job fuzzy. All right. And what I mean by that is, if I ask you the question, so what are you doing? Are you working or are you learning? And you say, well, I'm not quite sure. Then we're doing something right. We're doing something right as we go forward. So I always temper check that. You know, try and make the learning, you know, not feel like an onerous task or something extra they've got to do. Make it part of the day job. If we can try and do that with the customer, I think that's massive, massive. So we talked about the top 100 learning tools. You mentioned things like ChatGPT. I just want to sort of go through this for a moment. And it's just brilliant. So the top 100 learning tools in 2022. I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3. So number 1, you ready for this, guys? If I can press it. Oh, YouTube. And I went next one as well. YouTube. Number 3 is Google it. So that is just in time and just in the moment. It's what we do. We know that's what we do. So we have to make the learning the same as what people do in real life. And that's YouTubing it. I'll watch a video or I'll just Google it. But I've got a scary thing to show you guys. It makes me nervous. Number 2 is PowerPoint. I know that hurts, doesn't it? But also as a sense check, you know, we talk about content. PowerPoint is number 2. We've got all these sexy things like AI, LMS, LXPs, and it's PowerPoint. I just like to shout out one of the guys, one of the colleagues of my team. Lelania did this. She did the whole deck, but she did this slide here. I just thought it was wonderful. That 1, 3, and bang, hitting the 2 in the mouth. I was going to just do the 1 and 3, but the 2 makes a massive difference to me. PowerPoint. How can number 2 be PowerPoint? But there, I'll leave that one with you guys. So again, on this sort of topic, I just want to look at a survey by Thesis Learning and David James on the state of flow of work and learning. So they did a survey. So I just want to share that with you. So they surveyed about 2,000 learners, 1,000 L&D decision makers across 4 countries. Now, I've bolded 2 parts there. I thought was really good. Point of need, great, tick, they do that. But the last bit there, they aren't practical enough. They're not practical enough. So we are looking at the point of need, but it's not practical enough. 7 out of 10 decision makers said that. So for me, if we nail the practicality, it will support a learning culture. It will increase org agility. In plain speaking, you know, that's the right learning moments that are valuable, memorable, and relevant. It helps the business to adapt, react to change, and disruption at all levels. So really, if we start getting that right, it's almost problem solving. And I didn't realize that. You know, if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I'd probably said something different. but it's actually being the problem solvers and the enablers for people. That's what's important. But to do this well, I've tried to not say it, but it kind of came out in some of the bits that you guys said in the chat. For me to do this well, the secret ingredient is to bake the cake with them, co-create and bake the cake with them. That is huge, because you like the taste of your own cake. You like the taste of your own cake. You do it through design, iterate, and communicate with them continuously, small steps, even IMs, just anything that really keeps it moving. You always have them involved. You know, remember earlier, let's not be default setting a failure. Let's not be that default setting. Let's co-create. Let's partner with them as we go forward. So the question I'm going to ask you guys, and we can do it reflectively and maybe think about it, and looking at time for Anna. So again, collaboration of DNA, we're not an overhead. Sorry, I just missed a slide. Yeah, it's there. Sorry, apologies. What's stopping us from mastering learning the flow of work and being a true learning organisation? You know, maybe I'm looking at time, Anna. Could we just do that reflectively or do it in the chat? What's your thoughts? Anna?
Yeah, we can do that in the chat. We're still good on timing,
Yeah,
Chris.
brilliant.
We have roughly 20 more minutes, so should be
Okay.
fine.
I thought I'd just check just to watch your timing. Thanks, Anna.
Actually, my bad. We have another 7 minutes, so
Right.
sorry for that.
Okay, let's crack on. But just, you get the deck, but just really think about it. These are reflective questions, reflective intentional. Just you can use them at any time. So yeah, brilliant. So again,
We either way got a one insight, Chris, that's from Richard, changing people's minds and understanding of what workplace learning actually is.
Yeah.
And then Matthew was saying it's massive, too big to ever master.
I'd love to talk to him. Yeah, it's doing little chunks, isn't it? It's starting to create that movement, isn't it? Excellent. As I say, collaboration of DNA, it's network and influencing through constant partnering. We are not an overhead. We just are not an overhead. Okay, I'm mindful of time, as you say. Last bit is building engaging marketing strategy. So let's look back at what we've done over the last sort of 30 minutes. So we've looked at really understanding the problem, tick. Involve the customer throughout, tick. Move from content dumping to learning the flow of work, tick. All well and good. But what if we are the world's best kept secret? We don't market ourselves with the world's best kept secret. I want you to picture this. You do that sort of analysis with the customer and you say, so what do you do? What do learning do at your company? And you ask someone, and a bit flippant here, but they sort of say, oh, yes, you do that classroom stuff. Yeah. E-learning, yeah, but oh God, there's so much of it. I don't know where to go. There's, oh yeah, lots of e-learning stuff there. Yeah, going a few conferences. Oh, and you send us these emails to say you haven't done your compliance. That's what learning do, you know? And that can sometimes is what we don't want to hear, but that is sometimes what as people perceive us as. And how do we make that shift? Now, honesty check here at booking.com, we're going on a journey with a partner on this. You know, we sometimes are guilty of passing random information, ad hoc comms, and maybe not joining ourselves up there. So it's important for us to do that. And sometimes we are pushing rather than pulling. And that's mentioned earlier on by you guys. How do you pull, not push? And how do you do little sprays and praise? And sometimes, in all honesty, learning, we like to tell good time stories. It's all good time stories, vanity metrics. But sometimes it's okay. It really is okay to be honest of where we're at. You know, the small chunks, where are we at? You know, where we want to get to, and how do we involve you as part of it? You know, help us build those habits and impact. So I think that's important to be honest and tell that story in the language that they know. We need to understand what's in it for them. We really do. So again, we get upset when a customer comes with a solution, but sometimes we think we know what they want. So what do they want? It's understanding the customer of what they actually want. Be the customer. And it's understanding ourselves. We must understand ourselves. before the brand, the product, and the value. So I'll sort of, before we go into the sort of 3 steps that we're looking at, this is what we're putting through now as a project to booking.com. The 3 phases, we must get everything out on the table again. Similar to learning, it's again every channel, every campaign, the partners, the go-to-market strategy, all the different variables onto the table, so we can create a really good, just like a learning experience. For me, again, it's going slow to speed up. So we really have to do that before we do it and not just go straight into it. Again, slowing it down, we will speed it up. But then the deep discovery for me, it's that value proposition. It's really nailing that against the EVP. What is our value proposition? And it's key to understand the audience needs and wants, as mentioned before. When we're doing the marketing strategy, this is a holistic story. So importance is the language, to compare a narrative, and at the right moment. Almost a reset, sometimes a rebrand as well for what we stand for. And massive element of it, we're doing just now, and there's some great guys working on it, and that's the cultural change. It's a cultural change. So,
Chris, just a short reminder that we should be heading to questions soon.
Yeah. Right, I'm getting there. Okay, I'll get there. So very quickly, short-term campaigns and long-term branding. We realised that brand narrative across the organization was a must, so we must reposition ourselves on there. Short-term is consistent messaging, and then we do it in smaller chunks. So it's like a drip and tap, and it's alignment as well. So it's a drip and tap, constantly dripping through, as apart from massive sort of outpourings of different campaigns. All right. So again, take this question away with you. How many of you prioritise marketing your function? What did you do? So have a think about that as well. I just want to just really finish this off here. To add to this, it's not pushing, it's pulling. It's making the business an extension of learning offering. How do you involve them? It's about creating more DNA strands. You bring work and learning together and closer together. So, questions to reflect on. Are you an overhead? Who sees you an overhead, and what are you going to do about it? What band-aids do you need to rip off? All right, there's the 3 questions. Are you an overhead? Who sees you an overhead? And what will you do? What band-aids do you need to rip off? And I'm going to pass on this question here. It was one thing to do differently. Time-wise, I'm going to pass on this one here and move forward. As I said before, we could only snorkel. We couldn't deep dive. So limited time. But I'm going to ask you guys, who wants to join forces? We are looking to have a sort of task force of like-minded people. It's not just about having discussions. This is about tackling and executing, ensure we're not an overhead, and build the DNA strands. So the question is, do you want to join? So there's a sort of QR code there. We're looking to try and work with people on this element here. And it's important that it is about execution. This is us moving us forward. It's moving the dial together collectively. And finally, we've got some templates. So we have done some work. So we're putting a design template and a CTRA matrix. So there's 2 elements there for you to sort of see of some of the templates we've made here at booking.com. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. And any questions? Hey, Anna.
Yeah, I just put here in the chat now the link of also what Chris is sharing. We will either way then also be uploading the presentation. In the meantime, there's a question here from Richard. Do you think it's useful to not actually talk about learning, but focus on something like performance improvement?
Oh, gosh, Richard, yes. And I shouldn't say that. I really don't like the word learning because it's got the wrong connotations. It is about performance improvement. Yeah, I wouldn't use the word learning. As I say, in a lot of the things we do, we don't have a learning needs analysis. It's a business needs analysis. But try and sort of move away from that sort of idea of content. So, or how people perceive you. So, yeah, I really echo that point as well.
Then another question from Matthew. What's your first time killer question to understand stakeholder needs? I hope I read that right, Matthew.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Gosh, got me on the spot. Yeah, I'd probably say, firstly, what pain do you want to release? What is your pain point that you want to remedy? And then try and sort of go from there. So understand really, not so much the content they need, but what pain point they need removed.
And I think those are all the questions so far. Either way, you all also have Chris' LinkedIn profile, so you can get in touch. And I hope you also took note of how to join the task force. If not, then you can also reach out. There's another question, Chris, maybe the last one for those trying to enter the corporate market. Booking.com can be an example. What is the best value you can add and showcase? From Giuseppe.
So you can see that question again, please, Anna?
Sure. It says, for those trying to enter the corporate market, Booking.com can be an example. What is the best value you can add and showcase?
What can you showcase?
I'm not sure, Giuseppe, if you can also open your mic and enlighten a little bit what you would like to
Yes,
for
sure. So I was going to ask, as I'm trying to enter the corporate market as an instructional designer, what could be the value that I can add and showcase the most when I'm presenting myself to those companies? And I said Booking.com as an example because it's a big corporation. So in that sense.
Well, yeah, thank you for the question. I see now. When you showcase your wares, it's not showing just the design, it's showing the functionality of the benefit of it. So the biggest thing for me is when I look at someone that does sort of instructional design, I'm thinking very much about solution designer. So I'm looking for the solutions and the way forward in the design, not just the design. So I would always say value. What it's great for the experience, but what experience plus the value that it brings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Then I would say, in the sake of time, we can close it. There's a lot of praise in the chat, Chris, if you want to have a look. It seems like this was very, very interesting for many of those attending. So thank you, Chris, once again for joining us and sharing also, and pulling also for some people to join you in the task force. Thank you for that. Thank you also to everyone who attended. We have recorded the session and we will be making it available in our YouTube channel. If you want to revise something or if you just want to share it with someone else. Should you be interested in also hosting one of these L&D Backstage sessions, please get in touch. And yeah, that's all from my side. So thank you again. Thank you especially to you, Chris.
Thanks for your time, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you.